Steve, I think Philadelphia's got a heck of a chance to return to a Super Bowl. I wouldn't make them the favorite out of the NFC only because of their defense from last year, but they are in the mix. They got to make Detroit and San Francisco the two favorites, but they're in the mix to get back to a Super Bowl. I don't think there's any question about it.
I mean, you have to tip your cap off to Howie Roseman. I don't know what type of John Wick marker he has on these other general managers. Why would you let Dotson go within the division, which only added to the weaponry that Jalen Hurts had? But, Mad Dog, you hit it on the head when you talk about the defense. I'm concerned with this defense. It wasn't the offense. The offense was bad at the end, but the defense was horrible, historically horrible. When you think about their inability, they traded for Shaq Leonard last year to try and screw up at the second level. I think last year they really missed C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They brought him back. Let's see if he can be the player that he was for them before. Devin White's going to have to step up and, be that quarterback on that side of the ball. They lost a lot of leadership when you think about losing Kelsey, who I believe was the leader on both sides of the ball, but also Fletcher Cox. They're going to have to figure out how to stop guys get off the field. And I worry about, Kellen Moore, coming over there because sometimes he falls in love too much with throwing the ball. You remember, a couple years ago when Dak Prescott had that great year, he also threw 15 interceptions. I think, we have to figure out who is the real Jalen Hurts. Is it the one that we saw struggle against Tom Brady, being sophisticated and going back and reading defenses, or it's the one under Steichen who was able to really give him that read option type of look, quick reads, easy developing plays? Who is he? And when they ask him to do more, is he capable of doing more? He definitely has the weaponry around him, the roster to do it. But I'm a little concerned that maybe, just maybe, that window is closed a little bit because of the ascension of the Lions, and San Francisco window is still open.
Well, you can talk about the ascension of the Lions, and you talk about San Francisco all you want to. You can look at it that way. We can look at it in a different way. With coming to the Lions, you just arrived there, so you should still be had because you're still young pups to some degree. You haven't been conditioned for prosperity. You're just learning about that. That's number one. And on the case of the San Francisco 49ers, you've been knocking at the door, knocking at the door, knocking at the door. At some point in time, you're either going to kick it in or you're going to fall off the wagon because you've had too many opportunities, too many bites at the apple. So you can look at it that way, which is one of the ways that I'll look at it. When I think about the Philadelphia Eagles, I think about from a motivational standpoint, you went 1-5. You went 1-5 over the last 6 weeks of the season, and then you lost in the playoffs to Tampa Bay. So you finished the last 7 weeks of the season losing 6 of those weeks. Certainly, you've got some making up to do. So what do? Their offensive line, even though they lost Kelsey, is still considered one of the best in the business. You kept A.J. Brown. You re-upped him. You still got Devontae Smith and Goddard. You picked up Saquon Barkley. And then Hurts, who only had 8 turnovers the year they went to the Super Bowl, nosedived and had 20 last season. So he's got a lot of making up to do as well. He obviously improved as a thrower. We know his athleticism. He can run with the football. And you're looking at the offensive weapons that he has available to him to throw, to use Saquon Barkley as a security blanket, and on top of it all, to have an offensive line buffering him BS. And then here's the deal. Here's the thing that we have to take into consideration, much to the chagrin of Molly. If Daniel Jones can use Saquon Barkley as a security blanket,
yeah,
what do you think Jalen Hurts could do with Saquon Barkley as a security blanket? Someone to dip and dunk the ball to when all else fails. Because Saquon Barkley is that kind of an athlete. He's that kind of a player. And by the way, he didn't have guys like A.J. Brown and Goddard and Devontae Smith, as weapons to rely upon, okay? So I'm looking at it from that standpoint. And then you bring up Kellen Moore, Bart Scott. I got to tell you something right now. I understand what Kellen Moore falls in love with and how that could be to your detriment come playoff time. But during the regular season from 2019 to 2022, in terms of yards and scoring over the 4 seasons, there was nobody better in the National Football League of the Dallas Cowboys outside of Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. So we know during the regular season, in terms of accumulating yardage, accumulating points, which also spells for the defense and puts them in a position where they're not behind the 8 ball, Kellen Moore is considered one of the best in the business. And now he's a member of the Philadelphia Eagles, familiar with NFC East competition because he used to work for the Cowboys, and the Eagles, Commanders, and Giants are still in that same division today.
I mean, listen, I agree with you when you talk about Kellen Moore and how great of a football mind he is, but also it's the reason why this is his 3rd destination in 3 years, right? Because sometimes when you have coordinators that's trying to get head coaching jobs, sometimes they do what's good for them and not good for the team. You know what I mean? What's good for Jalen Hurts is to protect him and to run the football, right? To be able to let that defense be able to rest. Because that's the biggest concern. The biggest concern is the defense. I agree with you on everything, every point that you made on the offensive side of football.
But hold on, Bart. Here's what you can't do to Kellen Moore. And listen, he's a former Dallas Cowboy. He's a Dallas. I'm no fan. Okay, I'm not gonna root for him. But I'm just calling it like I see it. Kellen Moore, when he was in Dallas, why is he gone from Dallas? Because Mike McCarthy wanted to big up himself, move him out of there because he's the one that wanted to call plays, swearing that he was going to do something totally different. And then when Kellen Moore departed and he was handed the reins, he did the same damn thing Kellen Moore was doing in terms of throwing the football instead of running it more. That's number one. So that's why Kellen Moore was out from there. He goes to the Chargers, and remember, he was working under Brandon Staley. It's not like he's searching for a head coaching job. Not to say that he's not, because I'm sure he wants one. But the point is, he's gone from the Chargers because Brandon Staley was there, and we know he had to go. He's gone from the Cowboys because McCarthy wanted to empower himself to save his career, so we can't blame him for that. We can't look at him and being in 3 different locations and think, oh, it's because he's going all over the place. He's trying to be a head coach. Can't do that to him.
Yep.
Let's get real. The Philadelphia Eagles are on the edge of a precipice, and the stakes couldn't be higher. After the crushing defeat in the 2022 Super Bowl, this was supposed to be their time to rise from the ashes. Instead, what followed was a humiliating 2023 season, a disaster that shattered the hopes of their loyal fans. The dominance vanished, and now they stand at a critical crossroads. Can they regain their lost glory, or is this the beginning of their fall into mediocrity? This is not just about another shot at the Super Bowl, it's about proving that the Eagles are not a fleeting success. The time for excuses is over. This is a battle for their very identity as a top-tier NFL team. The Eagles' defense was an abomination last season. This wasn't just a stumble, it was a total collapse. A once formidable unit turned into a joke, crumbling when the team needed them most. 6 losses in the final 7 games. Unacceptable. They lost their leaders, their backbone, and their confidence. The absence of C.J. Gardner-Johnson was glaring, exposing gaping holes that couldn't be patched up. Even his return doesn't promise salvation. This defense must rise from the ashes or face total irrelevance. This team is at a breaking point, teetering between greatness and oblivion. The loss of veteran pillars like Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox has left a void that seems impossible to fill. Without their leadership, the Eagles are drifting, lost in a sea of uncertainty. If they don't find their direction soon, their dreams of returning to the Super Bowl will be crushed before the season even begins. Time is running out, and every second counts. Let's not sugarcoat it. The 2023 season wasn't just a disappointment, it was a catastrophe. The Eagles transformed from an offensive powerhouse into a predictable, stagnant mess. The explosiveness that once defined them was nowhere to be found. What happened to the team that tore apart defenses with ease? It's like they forgot how to play the game that made them so dangerous. The creativity was gone, replaced by a conservative, uninspired approach that left them dead in the water. This offense was supposed to be their ticket back to the Super Bowl, but instead it became their downfall. The downfield threat that made Jalen Hurts a star? Gone. This wasn't just a stumble, it was a nosedive. And if Hurts can't regain his form, forget about competing for a championship, they'll be lucky to even survive the brutal NFC landscape. Jalen Hurts was once hailed as the future of the Eagles, a dynamic quarterback who could do it all. But last season, his flaws were exposed. 15 interceptions? That's not just a bad stretch, that's a flashing red warning sign. Was 2022 a glimpse of his true potential? Or was it just a lucky run? Can he really carry this team on his shoulders? Or is he already on the decline? This is the harsh reality Hurts needs to prove himself all over again. The excuses are done. Yes, the offensive system was broken. Yes, the play calling was atrocious. But now the pressure is on him. With Kellen Moore stepping in as offensive coordinator, there's hope, but there's also no room for mistakes. If Hurts can't thrive under Moore's system, then maybe he isn't the savior Philadelphia thought he was. So here's the million-dollar question: can the Eagles claw their way back to the Super Bowl? Or is this a team that has already missed its golden opportunity? This isn't just about talent, it's about heart, grit, and sheer willpower. It's about whether this team has what it takes to rise from the ashes after hitting rock bottom. The NFC is a battleground, and the Eagles are running out of time to prove they belong at the top. The San Francisco 49ers, the Detroit Lions, these teams are hungry, and they're not going to wait for the Eagles to figure things out. If Philadelphia can't fix their glaring issues, they'll be left in the dust, a forgotten contender in a league that moves on fast. The clock is ticking. The Eagles need to show that they're still contenders, that they still have the fire and determination to make a run for the championship. If they fail, then we'll all know that the 2022 Super Bowl run was nothing more than a fluke, and this team's best days are already behind them. But it's not just about the competition, it's about the hunger, the drive, the desire to be great. Do the Eagles still have that fire burning within them? Or has the pain of defeat dulled their edge? History has shown that not every team can recover from a collapse like the one Philadelphia experienced last season. This team needs to prove that they're not just coasting on past success. They need to show that they still have the fight, the resilience, and the determination to claw their way back to the top.